Deep trouble with the IRS.
I owed the IRS a lot of money. I did not know what I was going to do. I was scared.
Agnes caught a break and found out about Optima Tax Relief.
But when I called Optima Tax, they guaranteed me that they were going to help me out the best that they can. And they did.
Optima stopped the IRS.
No more telephone calls, no more letters. Optima Tax took care of everything. I can finally sleep at night. I was stress-free.
Agnes was finally free from her IRS nightmare.
It was like a burden was lifted off of me, and it was a great feeling.
Are you in deep trouble with the IRS? You might want to listen to Agnes.
I would refer Optima Tax Relief to anyone because they got me debt-free from owing the IRS any more money.
Call Optima right now for your free consultation. Call 800-279-6822. 800-279-6822. 800-279-6822.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
News Talk Cleveland, WERE, Cleveland Heights, WENZ HD2, and WZAK HD3 Cleveland. And streaming live at BlackPlanetRadio.com. This is a paid program brought to you by Starfish Speaks. The views and opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of this station or its management.
STARFISH Speaks on WERE 1490. We're so pleased to be here to bring you current information about resources in our community, current events in education, hot topics, ideas to make parenting your special needs child and young adult enriching and hopefully fun. We hope you will join us in our discussion today by calling 216-578-1490. We hope for Starfish Speaks to become an important part of your Sunday afternoon. So grab a cup of coffee and join us in the discussion. I'm Donna Gilcher, your host today, and I have some special friends in studio with me from LEAP, Linking Employment, Abilities, and Potential, one of Cleveland's great treasures. I have first Melanie Hogan, Executive Director of LEAP, a Center for Independent Living in Cleveland, Ohio. Melanie has been with the organization, which serves individuals with disabilities in 6 counties for 23 years. She's been actively involved in human services field her entire career, working with individuals with disabilities in a number of capacities, including residential, vocational rehabilitation, and independent living services. Welcome, Melanie.
Thank you so much for having us, Donna.
Next, I have Tricia Quavenin. She serves as the Acting Director of External Affairs at LEAP. She's a seasoned nonprofit management professional, a licensed social worker with over 25 years of broad experience in human services, nonprofit management, and external affairs and organizational consulting. Tricia also serves as an adjunct marketing faculty, with Mandel School of Applied Social Sciences at Case Western Reserve University. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
And I'm very pleased to also welcome in a young man who found success through LEAP, Greg Stewart. He's a graduate of the Ohio Media School, has an associate degree in visual graphic design, works for the Cleveland Browns, and previously interned for our radio host here, Radio 1. So welcome. Remember, join our conversation today by calling 216-578-1490 with questions. Or if you or your family have been served by LEAP, give us a call. Let us know. So welcome all of you. I am so pleased to have you. I've been so excited waiting for this to come. And I got to tell you, Melanie, Tricia, you guys have absolutely one of the best organizations in Cleveland. I love it. And
thank you.
I also must say, you've got the friendliest receptionist in town. When you call LEAP or you walk in your offices, it's always a pleasure. Tim just makes you feel welcome and invited. You're never a burden when you're calling. And I got to tell you, it's just nice to have in this day and age. So I want to start us off, Melanie.
Sure.
can you give our listeners who are not aware of your organization a little background in history and how LEAP began?
Sure. LEAP began about 36 years ago. Our focus on independent living really began with my former predecessor, our executive director, Doris Brennan, who was a quadriplegic as a result of an automobile accident. And at that time, she really was trying to get access to the community, but there were really no services available to her. So by becoming an independent living center, we were able to focus our services and work for people with disabilities in the community by creating opportunities for employment, independent living, access to housing and transportation, and the organization has just grown since then.
Wow. So what's the prevalence of disabilities both in Ohio, but especially just in Cuyahoga County?
Well, in the whole country, there's 57 million people with disabilities. In Ohio, for our 11.6 million population, 16% have a disability, so that's close to 2 million people.
Wow.
Cuyahoga County alone, about 11% have a disability, so that translates to about 141,000 people with disabilities. And in the city of Cleveland, it's a little bit higher with 16% of our population, so that's close to 64,000 people with disabilities.
That's a lot of people with disabilities.
That's an awful lot. And that doesn't include the 65-plus population, many of whom are living in institutions. So if you add that, that's another 217,000 folks. It's
Wow.
a lot of people.
Okay, I got to tell you, as an advocate, that's a lot of people. Why are we out there having to fight so hard? I wonder, with that many people. So, Greg, I'm so pleased to have you.
Thank you.
Can you give our audience firsthand a look into some of the difficulties that you face every day as a person with a disability?
Well, being diagnosed with cerebral palsy is one of the biggest challenges that you could ever face as a person with a disability because, number one, you had no say-so in the situation. So you already have the odds against you because so many people are looking at your disability instead of your ability. So I already knew I had a fight on my hands, but I just take credit to, first of all, my mother, who I love and appreciate very much for taking the time to school me on various things, and also my aunt, my grandparents, and the rest of my family who have stood behind me through everything. One of the greatest accomplishments that I'm proud of is being able to not only graduate high school, but completing college twice, and then moving out on my own and striking out, which I've been very successful at for the past 12 years. Being a person with a disability, it has its ups and downs to it, more so ups than downs, but, because you always have to deal with the lack of accessibility, people looking at you funny like, okay, you shouldn't be out here without somebody supervising you or this. So it's always some type of challenge to it. But being someone who's dealt with a disability my entire life, I find a way to, keep pushing, just keep fighting through it.
So it sounds to me like the one piece of advice that you give to everybody and parents of children with disabilities is A, to be there, push, encourage, and expect high expectations.
Exactly. Because we as people with disabilities, we didn't ask for this, but, we find a way to make it happen.
Yeah, so, my son has autism, and, I grew up with a learning disability. My grandmother called it beating to a deafened drum. Yeah. And my parents always called it, you're just differently abled and stuff. So, but here's the question, okay? This is the 27th year of the American Disabilities Act, okay? So wasn't the ADA created so that Greg would never have access issues? Greg would never have discrimination issues as a person with a disability?
I can remember the day that law was passed. I remember how old I was, what I was doing, and everything, because I was only 7 years old when that law got passed. And I still remember this to this day. My mother called me in the living room, and we had just got done eating dinner, and she told me, I want you to sit down and pay very close attention to this because this is going to impact you for the rest of your life.
Okay, so.
And she was right.
All right, so Melanie, Tricia, why are we still fighting about it? Why isn't everything accessible?
Well, I think, first of all, when the ADA was passed, it was the result of a very long history of independent living and civil rights advocacy for individuals with disabilities. There were some regulations and laws that preceded it, but by the time the ADA got passed, it focused on creating greater physical accessibility as well as employment opportunities and access to public systems. We have made a significant amount of progress since the passing of the ADA. So when you think about life, or as I mentioned, Doris's life beforehand, compared to Greg's, there are a lot of differences. Why are we still fighting for it now? I think predominantly because it was an unfunded mandate, so it's a regulation for all of us, but it doesn't come with a tremendous amount of dollars to help people be in full compliance.
Do we have?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think too, it's a law that isn't universally applied or enforced, and as Melanie pointed out, there is a lack of resources. A lot of Americans and American companies, in particular, don't even understand the legislation or what they're required to do. I think too, the culture hasn't necessarily adopted and internalized the value of promoting and providing accessibility, whether it's actual access to buildings, access to employment, however we want to define accessibility. I think that culture has grown from where it was 27 years ago, but I think sometimes there's still an attitude of reticence about really incorporating people with disabilities, and that's one of the things that LEAP does, is we really strive to create a culture where accessibility would be the norm, and all places, whether they're companies, public spaces, would be welcoming and accessible to people with disabilities. And it's a work in progress.
So what are some things that people can do? I mean, is there, you say it's an unfunded mandate. You say that, a lot of people don't understand it. But, there's a lot of, I have, our Starfish parents, we're mighty. And, parents of children with disabilities are mighty. So there's got to be some simple things that every person could do every day to help make everything more accessible. What would those be? If you had 3 things that you'd say, if you do these 3 things each day, you're going to be able to be part of the solution.
I think first off, it's awareness. I think people don't really understand what the term disability means. So if you think about it, it is an individual with cerebral palsy like Greg. It could be an individual with anxiety, depression, cancer, Alzheimer's, arthritis. So all of these medical conditions and diseases all are part of the family of disability. 1 in 4 people, when you look at it from that perspective, have a disability. And we're all going to grow into one at some point in time. We're going to have a sensory loss, a vision loss, a hearing loss, a mobility issue as we grow older. So I think the biggest thing is creating awareness and dispelling the myths about people with disabilities. Secondly, I would say along the lines of dispelling the myths is there is a great misperception that people with disabilities can't contribute or don't have the desire to contribute or are better off being taken care of by a more institutional type of care. People with disabilities like Greg and all of the individuals that we serve really want to be part of their community, and the policies that help support that are now becoming more prevalent, but again, it is a huge cost factor. So when we talk about helping people be in home and community-based services, I think that's something that everybody in your listening audience could promote and help advocate for in terms of not only creating opportunity for people to live and work in the community, but also doing some policy around getting funding more heavily focused in those areas.
All right. We've got a caller on the phone, Debbie from Beechwood. Thanks for calling Starfish Speaks. What's your question?
Hi there. I know Ohio is an employment-first state, and as such, the mission is to find employment after high school for all individuals with disabilities who want to work. So my question is, what is LEAP doing to support employment first, and what programs are you offering high school students?
That's a great question. Thanks so much, Debbie.
Thank you.
Sure. So this is Melanie again. We are an employment first provider. We work both with the Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities as well as the developmental disability system. We're a vendor for our employment services, so individuals can be referred to us and we can provide those transition services to youth. As far as high school youth, we also have a youth transition program. It's a much smaller program, again, simply due to the level of funding that we get for it, but we have been doing school-to-work transition for youth with disabilities for over 20 years in the Cleveland Public School systems.
Great. For those that are outside of Ohio that don't know about the OOD, that really is the Bureau of Vocational Rehabilitation. Mm-hmm. For some reason, Ohio decided to call it the OOD. So, great. So can you tell us, Melanie, a little bit more about how LEAP helps these people with disabilities? How would a person be able to come to LEAP and get some services?
Sure. The vast majority of individuals that are referred to us come through Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities, the OOD as you call it, the Developmental Disability System, or the Workforce Investment System. So we are a vendor of services. Individuals are referred to us for a specific service, and then we have staff in the employment area that deliver those services. We also have services in our independent living area, which include nursing home transition, recreation socialization program, very strong efforts around advocacy and public policy. All of our programs and services have different ways of accessing us. Individuals have different ways of accessing those services based on the funder and the referral source.
So if somebody has any of those supports, they could just say, I'd like to receive my services from LEAP. From LEAP. Mm-hmm. All right. It looks like we have a caller on the line. Hi, this is Starfish Speaks. What's your name?
Yes, I'd like to make a statement. Due to public schools, I heard one of your hosts mention like they have different programs, but I'm a teacher, and I noticed I don't think all the schools have the program because some of the kids are mental, but the school system do not take it seriously. They're in the classrooms, and the teachers know what's going on, and I do too. But I think the schools should talk more about the program in which trying to help those mental children. There's a lot of them in the classroom. I guess it's a personal issue. So talk on that issue, because I think this is why so much is going on out here as far as young people acting up. The parents don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. You know what? Thanks for calling. That's a really good point. So for those people that are out there in the schools, first of all, we have the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And through that Education Act, all students with a disability from 14 to 22 are required to have transitional activities and transitional planning. Now, that's what the regulation says. But just as you said, just as our caller shared, and whatever, not everybody does it. Some people do it in a pretty, easy, laissez-faire kind of way. Here's what I say to parents out there. Your child has the right to have robust, meaningful transition activities placed on their individual education plan, that's their IEP, and you need to advocate for that. And you need to say, I want my child referred to the Ohio Opportunities for Disabilities. If your child's able to qualify for developmental disabilities in your county, you want to say, I want a referral to go into that, because either of those can be funding streams into more out in the community, transition activities and funding. As teachers, here's my plug for teachers. We need teachers. Children with disabilities need the teachers to speak up, and they need to say, my student has an interest in radio. I'd like to be able to have him have some vocational opportunities, and it may just be doing the morning announcements in school to get those activities. Go ahead, Greg.
That's what I did. That's how I first got started in broadcasting. I really just went up there just to take the homeroom attendance up there, and my principal just slammed the mic in my hand like, you got to do the announcements. Not realizing that the mic was already on, and I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, did she really just do that? So I went ahead and I just did it, and it was like, I know what I want to do now.
See, and I think that's how it is. And so as a teacher, please advocate for the children with disabilities. Every school has transition coordinators that are assigned to them and are part of the school. They have to by law. If your school isn't doing this, then please bring the attention. First start with your own special ed department. If your special ed department won't listen to you, then I encourage you, you know what? Call up the Ohio Department of Education and say, I have a concern. They will take anonymous calls from you. So absolutely, you've got to advocate. I think the only way that we're going to be to the ideal of the American Disabilities Act is that every single person, every time they have an opportunity to speak out, advocate, push the envelopes a little bit, is the only way it's going to happen. And I think it has to be grassroots at this point. I said we have legislation, but it is unfunded. I mean, and so it doesn't always. So, Melanie, can you also tell our, I know that you have so many programs. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like you look at their website and it's like you have more programs than you could. So, Tricia or Melanie, could you tell our listeners, A, what some of your big programs are, but the one I'm really interested in, because I haven't seen it in a lot of places, that peer-to-peer support and the self-advocacy. What is that program?
Sure,
either one of you.
Sure. Okay. So we like to think about the programs and the services that we provide in three main buckets, because as you said, we do an awful lot of work. One is independent living, one is access to benefits and services, and one is employment. And we have lots of different programs and services under
Hold
those
that
three.
Thought for 1 second, because I'm being told we have to go to commercial.
Okay.
So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Starfish Speaks. I want to hear more about these three big buckets. So let's take a break.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. I improved my credit score.
You're kidding, right?
No.
How are we supposed to be the bad boys of electro-synth pop if you're out there being responsible? The band is about to be discovered. This is our year.
Yeah, you've been saying that for a while now.
You think anyone in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was worried about their credit score?
I never really thought that.
Of course they weren't. Rock stars aren't supposed to think about that kind of stuff. We're supposed to think about how many guitars we've smashed, write aggressively sensitive power ballads, start questionable fashion trends, tragically break up and blame creative differences.
All right. I thought maybe it was time to take control of my finances, you know? Start using a budget, get out of debt, set some goals.
A budget? Debt? Set some goals? Listen, I knew that we'd have our creative differences, but I was hoping they'd involve a little more scandal.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Everybody buckle up. Buckle up. Buckle up. Buckle up. Everybody buckle up. Buckle up. Buckle up. Everybody buckle up.
Let's go.
Buckle up.
Can we go to the store? Can we get some ice cream?
Everybody, buckle up.
Everybody buckle up.
A lot goes on in the car, but remember, you're in control. Stand firm. Only move when you hear the click that says they're buckled in. Never give up until they buckle up. Learn more at safercar.gov/kidsbuckleup. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. You're listening to Starfish Speaks on WERE 1490. Feel free to join our conversation at 216-578-1490. So, Melanie, when we went to break, you were talking about your three main buckets. Could you tell us a little more about those?
Sure. So the three main buckets that LEAP has for services include independent living services, access to benefits and resources, and employment services. One of the programs that we have under the Independent Living Program is the peer support and self-advocacy, as you mentioned. We find that that is one of the core unique aspects of our organization. 51% of our board members and 51% of our staff members are persons with disabilities themselves. We believe that people need to know that they can live and work in the community when the proper supports are in place. So our peer support programs and our self-advocacy programs, which Greg has actually been a part of over the years, really helps support individuals in understanding that there are resources in the community that can help them. They can help them put together their own goals for their future and their sort of road path of how to get there, and then our peer staff help individuals through that process, whether it's going to work, whether it's moving into an independent living environment in the community, or whether it's becoming financially stable.
Well, so it's almost like a mentoring.
A little bit, yeah.
Greg, you want to talk about that peer support?
Yes. First off, I want to say that it's been almost 10 years that I've been involved with LEAP, and it's been a tremendous experience. I started out just as an advocate advocating for Medicaid, Medicare, public transportation, accessible housing, and it just grew from there. I had a chance to speak with legislators, travel to Columbus, so LEAP has allowed me to advocate for many things, and I'm very grateful for that.
Wow, thanks so much. Okay, welcome, Terry. Where are you calling from?
I'm coming from West Cleveland.
Great. Thanks for calling Starfish Speaks. What's your question today?
Well, it's almost more of a suggestion. Earlier you talked about how parents need to advocate with their school districts and maybe go to the Board of Education with complaints if the school districts aren't responsive to that. I have a concern that could end up, creating a problem for that family. You could have a school district that then becomes really unhappy with that family and becomes even more unresponsive or uncooperative. And it seems to me like it might be better off if instead of everyone kind of fighting on their own islands, if we had more of a grassroots movement with everybody kind of involved.
Absolutely. I think we all agree with that. And that's one of the things, and that's one of the reasons why that's one of the reasons why Starfish is here. Sometimes parents have to call and bring someone in so that there can be a different voice with them. Boy, our phones are lighting up.
I think there's a lot of informal networks, too, support groups and parents that are involved in PTA and even directly with their child's teacher. Parents have a way of getting these things done. And I think strengthening those relationships and forming those networks or joining networks that already exist is a great way to leverage influence.
And even the PTA now has a special ed parent PTA as well. All right, let's take another call from... Hi, welcome to Starfish Speaks. Can you tell us your name and where you're calling from?
Lisa.
Hi, Lisa. What's your question?
My question is, once people have come to your agency and you've helped them prepare for a job and get a job, is there a caseworker who helps that person through maybe the first year to be able to keep the job?
That's a great question, Lisa. Thanks so much. Melanie, Tricia, Greg?
Sure. We provide, again, it depends on which agency the person is referred to us for, but we provide job exploration, job placement services, and job coaching once they get the job. And then we have a job coaching fading plan so that we're making sure that the individual is doing the job correctly and the employer is happy with them. As an organization, we do our best to follow people for a 12-month period afterwards. But what we really want is that once we help somebody find a job, that they call us if there are some problems or concerns, and we encourage the employers to do that as well, because we don't want to be dealing with a crisis at the last minute. We really want to be able to help that person keep that job for as long as possible.
So it sounds to me like you're teaching the individuals how to advocate for themselves.
Yes.
Seek help when they need it. Thanks.
Exactly.
All right. We have Tricia, I believe, on.
Yes. I would like to make a statement. I heard her say something about independent living. Now, is that referred to adult 18 and over? Because a lot of young people probably need that help because sometimes parents don't see it. It's a lot of runaways out here. And those programs she's talking about, those are really mental disabled young people. And they really need a check if they're qualified to be an independent person. Because some parents don't understand. They're not giving the right teaching to those young people. And this is why I call to refer a program for them. I'll listen to you. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Tricia, calling. You know what? I just want to real quick. You know what? There are supports out there. I mean, there's people can apply for Social Security insurance for the disability. There's different kinds of things. But yes, the independent living programs are for those that are 18 to 25 usually. So you want to answer that?
Sure. And in our case, our independent living services are for anybody of any age. We are, as a Center for Independent Living, we serve people with all types of disability, whether it's physical, sensory, cognitive, intellectual, neurological, mental health. So the independent living services are categorized in a variety of programs. We've talked about the peer support. We also provide independent living skills training, and we provide nursing home transition. I think the caller's question was more around young adults and preparing young adults for the transition to independence in the community. And we can also provide those services. There are a number of programs in the community for people with cognitive disabilities through the developmental disability system that also helps people live independently in the community.
So part of it is just awareness and helping parents know maybe how to make a referral, how to pick up a phone, make that referral, and whatever.
Yeah, and I think she also made a good point about oftentimes parents are either concerned about health and safety issues of an individual living alone in the community, or they're really not aware that there are resources out there that can help somebody transition and be more independent. And we try to let people know that those services are available to them.
Well, I can tell you, I have a lot of parents that they're worried about their children getting hurt or being exploited out in the community. And so, it's hard. I got to tell you, the first time my son moved into the apartment by himself, and he had a care provider with him and everything else, but I got to tell you, I had many, many nights that I worried. But his caseworker had said to me, you cannot call him. You've got to give him an opportunity to fly. And if you don't give him that opportunity, it'll be a problem. Greg, what do you have to share with us?
I can definitely relate to that because my family was like that. And I mean, they still are now to an extent. But at the same time, I realized that, if they didn't love you and they didn't care, then they wouldn't. So, it's just part of the process, man.
Process of growing up. Okay,
exactly.
All right, we have a caller, Diane, I believe. Where are you from, Diane? Hello, Diane?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I seem to remember that sometime in the 90s, maybe the federal government passed something called the Work Incentives Act, and it was supposed to help people with disabilities be able to enter the workplace. And there were a number of supports that were built into that act, as I remember. I wondered if the institutions that are responsible for carrying out that act have been active, and if it's made a difference in the lives of people with disabilities. And if it hasn't, why aren't those, state groups or whatever held responsible for doing that?
That's a great question. Tricia, Melanie?
I would defer to Melanie on this. I think you know more about the legislation than I do.
Sure, yeah, that was a very well-informed question. So that's the Workforce Investment Act, which in 2014 got reauthorized, and it's now called the Workforce Investment and Opportunities Act for people with disabilities. It encompasses lots of populations aside just people with disabilities. It is working towards helping individuals get access to employment. It works heavily around the employer development side of things, so they're trying to get employers more engaged in creating employment opportunities for people with disabilities, as well as the reauthorization was an attempt to get a variety of state agencies to work more closely together. So there are, for example, mandates that the opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities be part of those services. The developmental disability system needs to be part of those services as well. So it does still exist. It is definitely an effort towards helping people gain access to employment. I hate to keep saying it, but I think the one of the biggest barriers to that is the funding of it. Our youth program was funded by that program 20 years ago, and we served over 100 youth and had almost $300,000, and that project is now down to about 50. It's a very complicated formula. Much of it is driven by how the federal government gives money to the states, which is partially based on the state's population. So I think the intent and the philosophy for doing the right thing is there. I think the policy and the regulations and the lines of dollars are more complicated.
All right, so just a question. We see all these signs for employment first and whatever. Mm-hmm. Is the Workforce Incentives Act, is that part of the employment first?
No, Employment First is the governor's executive order, and it's working primarily with the developmental disability system and opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities. WIOA, Workforce Incentive Opportunities Act, is a Department of Labor initiative.
Oh, great. Thanks for clarifying. Mm-hmm. So, you know what? I share a lot of resources with parents, mm-hmm. and I have a feeling what we're going to get is the answer. So, there are so many young parents and parents of young adults who have gone to YouTube. They look at the Innovative Independent Living Project mm-hmm. that I know you guys assisted with a number of years ago, and that the guide that was developed by a multiple of those families to be able to replicate mm-hmm. this is something I swear I just should make it a one of those tiny URLs mm-hmm. because I feel like I send the URL 1,000 times a day sometimes.
Well, that's great.
So here's my question, though. We keep talking about funding, mm-hmm. and there's a tack on the Medicaid expansion that happened, and there's a tack on, the health care, which pays some of these initiatives as well. Those kind of creative projects that really help build independence for people, and especially for that 18 to 25 group that is so necessary. Do you think that those kind of projects can happen still in this repeal Medicaid expansion kind of mentality in our state?
Well, I would say again that the intent and the philosophy for home and community-based services does exist. There is an attempt at the federal level to align their services. There's an attempt at the state level to provide more opportunity for people to live independently and to work in the community. The challenge is, how do you make that transition when you're in an era of massive Medicaid reform? So the last 4 or 5 years have seen an unprecedented time of change in federal policy, the likes of which the country hasn't seen in over 40 years. So it can appear to be very frustrating to think that all of our benefits and resources are being stripped away, when in fact you look at the federal proposals and even some of the state proposals. That was a real battle for the last 6 months to keep some of those Medicaid provisions in place. It's I don't know, it's like a
tug of war,
or right, because the ideal is there, but the funding just doesn't exist, both at the state and federal level. So I think from an advocacy perspective, we just have to keep pushing for public policy and making sure that those policies and cost containments, which are clear drivers for the strategies and priorities at the federal and state level, that we are reacting and responding and showing the impact that it has on people with disabilities. What happens when you take those resources away? What happens when you invest in people to live in the community? Those are real, tangible stories that everybody can tell.
So here's a question. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if we have the data, but is there data on how much it costs to maintain someone from, 18 to whenever, excuse me, guys, in an institution versus being able to maintain someone and assist them in the community and with employment?
Yes, the data's out there. I don't know that I can quote it off the top of my head, but as a comparison, I'll tell you that for somebody to live in a nursing home or institutional setting, in Ohio, it's an average of $64,000 to $69,000 a year to maintain somebody in an institutional setting, whereas a home and community-based setting, somebody can receive the services that they need to live independently between $25,000 and $30,000 a year.
Okay,
so there's a huge savings to be living in the
If I'm doing my math, that's like almost a $44,000 a year savings?
Correct.
Correct. So why aren't we all doing that?
Well, I think the state is making an attempt to do that, and I think the developmental disability system is moving in that direction. Right. Medicaid is still the largest part of our state budget, and tackling that beast from the legislative perspective is a real challenge.
All right. So we've hit on two of your we've hit on the one bucket well. I want to, real quick, if you could tell us, what about that benefits analysis one, that bucket that you have on a benefits analysis?
Sure. So one of the expertises that we have at LEAP is that we have individuals who are certified by Cornell University to be benefits specialists. Individuals referred to us have access to benefits consultation, application and enrollment assistance, benefits analysis, and support with appeals. It's a really complicated topic, and we offer workshops to give sort of a high-level overview of the various benefits programs. But I have to say, this is one of the greatest myths about people with disabilities, and the fear, both a myth and a fear about going to work and the loss of benefits. If you go to work and you have an income, yes, it will impact your benefits. You won't necessarily lose everything, but the benefits analysis will help you understand what your bottom line financial status is on a month-to-month basis. So it's really critically important that people think about access to benefits and services that are available to them, and then do an analysis that helps them understand the impact on their bottom line income when they choose to go to work. But the benefits programs that are out there, aside from us assisting with Social Security and Medicaid applications, there are a number of food programs, there's medical and prescription programs, there's energy assistance programs, there's a lot of employment-related programs, there's child care programs, and we even do voter registration. So the benefits area is really broad, and when you package all of that together, people can be as independent in the community as they want to be.
So do you, those in services that you do, sort of big level ones, are those ever done just open, like in the community? You don't have to be referred to it, just informational pieces?
No, you don't have to be referred. We would put out just a notice that we're doing a workshop, and anybody who wants to can come.
So I would suggest people be able to check on your website.
Yes.
Can you tell our listeners what your website address is?
Absolutely. It's leapinfo.org. So the acronym LEAP, L-E-A-P, the word info, I-N-F-O.org. And there's a myriad of information there about upcoming events, classes, services, workshops, and it's a great resource for people that are looking for help.
Now, those workshops and all of that stuff, I'm assuming, do they cost a lot of money?
Well, they cost us some to put them on, so we don't do them that often. And we do get a lot of requests from individual groups of folks to provide to provide a workshop for that individual group. But we could do, if there was enough need for or interest for a workshop on benefits analysis, we could certainly
So if a
do that.
PTA group called or a high school group of parents called and said, we'd love you to come to, ABC High School and put on an in-service for our parents one evening, you'd say, yep. And
Yes.
they're nominal costs, I'm assuming?
Sure.
Or
Yes.
big buck costs?
Yeah, no, not big buck costs. We just want to be able to cover the cost of the staff person who's delivering the program.
Oh, well, absolutely. We expect that. All right. So I want to just one more time, let you know we'd love you to get involved. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in a minute. You're listening to Starfish Speaks on WERE 1490. Feel free to join the conversation, 216-578-1490.
Are you addicted to drugs or alcohol? Even if you think you might have a problem, call this number right now for free information. 800-610-4417. That's 800-610-4417. By calling the Addiction Rehab Specialist, you're taking the first steps to recovery. Their advisors are ready to match you with a proven 5-star facility right now. The call is free and the information is free. 800-610-4417. The federal government says you can have up to 90 days off work for treatment. And if you have insurance through your employer, it could mean little to no cost to you. This free call is completely confidential. Seriously, pick up the phone and call us now. Our advisors are standing by. 800-610-4417. 800-610-4417. That's 800-610-4417. 800-610-4417. Addiction Rehab Specialist is a network of independent treatment centers and placement services nationwide.
If you've fallen behind on your taxes, you know the IRS is already coming for their money, and they'll get it too by garnishing your wages or maybe even taking your home or business. They call it enforced compliance, and you'd better watch out because the penalties and interest compound daily, making it seem impossible to ever get out of debt. You need to call the experts at Optima Tax Relief. Solving tax issues is all they do. One call to Optima starts the process to stop the demand letters and stop aggressive collection actions. They get to work immediately, fighting to protect your assets and helping you put your tax problems behind you. The IRS writes off millions every year, and Optima knows all the ins and outs of the IRS's tax assistance programs that could save you thousands. So what are you waiting for? Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-279-6822. 800-279-6822. 800-279-6822.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Join us as we help families who are taking in other families. Donate to the BlackAmericaWeb.com Relief Fund, and every dime you donate goes right to the people who have opened up their homes to help. All the details on BlackAmericaWeb.com.
This is Al Grimes, Director of the Cuyahoga County Fatherhood Initiative. I have an important message to all fathers, stepfathers, and father figures in Cuyahoga County. Join us every Wednesday for Fathers Matter with Al Grimes from 5 to 6 p.m. on WERE 1490. We'll talk about important issues such as jobs, parenting skills, child support, and more. We will have special guests, questions, and answers. Wednesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. on WERE 1490. Why should you listen? Because fathers matter.
Hi, we're back with LEAP. This is Starfish Speaks. You can find us on Twitter at Starfish Speaks. And as we were going to break, we were just finishing up talking about benefits and all of that stuff. And benefits is going to lead us into, Tricia, I understand you have a big benefit coming up, a big event coming up. Can you tell us about it?
We do. LEAP is like a lot of nonprofits. We rely on our donors and friends and supporters to help us financially. And we do have a benefit coming up on Thursday, September 14th at the Breen Center in Ohio City. It's an after-work party format. It's going to be taking place from 5 to 8 p.m., so it's an ideal time for people to stop by after work. We're doing essentially a benefit concert. We're going to have live music at this fundraiser. It's a Latin jazz artist named Gusto Saborit. Yeah, I've been to a couple of his concerts, and he's really terrific. He brings the whole band, and it's really great music. You won't be able to keep your feet still while they're playing. But this is a pretty traditional fundraiser for LEAP. We're going to have auction and raffle, and we've got some great prizes that people can win. We're going to have a nice catered reception with a little help from Stancatos. A lot of Northeast Ohio people would understand the great food that Stancatos provides, and then the live music and the auction and raffle. It's going to be a really, really great time. Tickets are $50 per person, and they're available on our website, leapinfo.org, and you can look at the events tab. There's also an event banner there that visitors to our website can select, and they can buy their tickets that way securely online using a credit card. And we'll be selling tickets right up until the day of the event on Thursday the 14th, and we just invite anybody who's listening to come and support LEAP and enjoy live music.
Well, you know what? We've got all of these new millennials and all of the rebirth of downtown and all of that. I encourage everybody go out. $50 is cheap, I got to tell you, for an evening of music, dancing, and food. That's inexpensive. That's a great date.
Yeah, we agree. It should be a lot of fun. And we had a great crowd last year. We're hoping to grow that crowd a little bit, have more people come. Ohio City really has developed into a destination neighborhood, and it's a great place to come after work and just enjoy supporting LEAP and all the great work that we do.
Absolutely. I think it sounds awesome and fabulous. So, community can help you a couple different ways. A, come to your benefit. How else can the community help LEAP?
Well, there's a couple different ways I would suggest. LEAP is beginning to build a volunteer program, primarily to support the activities in our recreation area. LEAP has a wonderful recreation program for people with developmental disabilities called Quantum Leap. And Quantum Leap offers a variety of athletic and field trip and cultural experiences for adults with developmental disabilities. We have two really great coordinators who work in that program as employees, but we also have and need more volunteers to go out with the participants and help them. The program offers things like walking club, volleyball, swimming, field trips, and as you can imagine, the more people we have along on these excursions, the more fun it is, and also the easier it is for some of the participants to really enjoy themselves. So we have the opportunity for people to volunteer with Quantum Leap, and they can learn more about volunteering on our website, again, leapinfo.org.
And do you have a Twitter account too?
We do. We have several different social media feeds. LEAP is on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and also we have a variety of videos on YouTube. And our Twitter handle is @LEAPOhio. And same for Facebook. People can find us there, and there'll be a lot of information on those social media feeds about different events we have coming up.
And you know what? That really, there was one of the things I had seen on your website about these, recreation, social lifestyle activities. Those sound great to go to. And I can imagine that a community person would just enjoy going along and doing the activity too.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's such a neat way for people to connect and be a support to someone with a disability, and also to just be involved in getting out of the house, enjoying the recreation opportunities for themselves, seeing different things in Cleveland. Quantum Leap has gone to the aquarium, to sporting events, to the Rock Hall. And if you enjoy all those different Northeast Ohio venues, it's a great way to get involved and see those things.
Wow, that's great. And is there an age limit for being able to participate?
This program is for people 18 and up. Do you mean for the volunteers or for the people that are in Quantum Leap? Yeah, I think we need volunteers to be adults. So we have some opportunities for students that are assigned by different school programs that kids are participating in. But I think for Quantum Leap to be a regular volunteer with our programs, we would need adult applicants.
Can senior citizens that are out in the community, and that would be a great. I think of all my friends are retiring. We're not telling you how old I am, but all my friends are retiring, and the one thing I'm hearing from all of them is, I love retirement, but I'm having a difficult time keeping my social connections and those kind of things. This sounds like a great way to be able to do that.
I agree. Something else we really need for this program are donations of sporting goods. We, in particular, are looking for softball equipment and golf equipment right now.
Wow.
So people can call us. They can look on our website and figure out how to connect with us and have those items donated to us. That would be a tremendous help.
Oh, that's terrific. And I bet even you'd be willing to take them from those donations of used golf equipment, even from some of the golf courses.
Well, sure. If there's any golfers listening and you're not using your clubs anymore, or if any golf courses have equipment, we'd be glad to take it off your hands.
Awesome. All right. So we only have a short time until we are done. If you have a last-minute call you want to get in, make sure you give us a call. It's 216-578-1490. Greg, I want to have you tell our listeners, if you had two things or even one thing that you could leave them with for them to know about a person with a disability or differently abled, what would you like them to know?
Well, there's two things I would like them to know. First off, don't be afraid to educate yourself. Learn about the other's disability, because just because you see two people in wheelchairs or on crutches or on walkers, it doesn't mean they have the same thing. You know, two people, it affects everybody differently. So never be afraid to educate yourself about the other's disability. And second, just know that, you know, you have a voice, and allow people to focus more on your abilities and not your disabilities. There's a big difference. So if you can do one of those two things, if not both of them, then you will be just fine.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that is, you know, as a parent of a young adult, someone who helps other young adults, it's so often they may have brilliant skills. I know you've studied to be a radio person and be a producer in the radio, but oftentimes the opportunities just aren't there, and it really is a matter of looking beyond the disability to be able to look at just what abilities a person has.
Yeah, because I think the biggest thing is everything's fine on paper, but once they see the person with the disability in person, they get scared and get nervous. And it's like, allow me to show you what I can do in spite of my disability. Let me show you that I can do this. If I didn't feel I can do it, then I wouldn't be here, because it'll be wasting my time as well as yours. So let me show you what I'm capable of doing, instead of you just assuming that, oh, well, they can't do this because of this and this. No, if I didn't feel like I couldn't do it, I wouldn't be here.
And I think most people with disabilities have the same feeling. So your piece of advice, if I could sum it up, is this week, if you see somebody on the street with a disability, or they come into your business asking for a job, don't automatically assume they can't do it.
Exactly.
First,
right.
Ask what their abilities are. And that's really what LEAP is. So you guys are unique. You're so different than any other agency around. We have such a short amount of time. Could you tell us why your philosophy is so different than the other agencies?
You know, Donna, I think it's simply because we are part of the fabric of our communities. We believe that disability is a natural part of life. It is not those people with disabilities. We embrace it and understand that disability is something that we're all going to experience in our family members or within ourselves at some point in time. And we promote the philosophy of the independent living movement, which is that people with disabilities have the right to equal access and opportunity in our communities. We don't look at the disability as being the barrier, but as our environment as being the barrier. It's our lack of accessibility, our attitudes, our stereotypes that create barriers for people with disabilities. And so our work to improve public awareness of the needs of people with disabilities is just based on fair and social justice policy. We really want people to have a fair shake at life like anybody else. We're most unique simply because we demonstrate on a daily basis that possibilities become realities when opportunity is provided.
Yeah, and I think you do. All right, so if Tricia, what would be your last thought for our listeners?
The only other thing I would add to what Melanie said, I think what makes LEAP additionally unique is the comprehensive nature of what we provide. There's a lot of other agencies in Northeast Ohio that serve people with disabilities, and a lot of them provide a service, a piece. Some of them provide housing. Some of them provide very specific, almost narrow courses of service. But LEAP is really broad in what we provide. It's kind of like soup to nuts, and I think that's one of the biggest benefits about working with LEAP and getting LEAP as your service provider is that you really do have access in one place to a wider array of services that would allow you to be as independent as possible.
I got to tell you, I recommend you guys all the time. You know what? I know you're in 6 counties. Could you just real quick tell us which counties you're in?
Sure. The vast majority of our services are in Cuyahoga County because this is where we live. We also serve Lorain and Erie County, Geauga, Lake, and Medina.
All right. So thank you guys so much for joining us. I want to say thanks so much for our audience for joining us this week at Starfish Speaks. Please tell a friend about us. Join us next week at 1 p.m. on WERE 1490. Let's continue the conversation on Facebook or Twitter at Starfish Speaks. And thank you so much. We're so glad to have you here. And let's go out with some music from our special friend, Logan, and Directions.
Moving like a dancer in a perfect dream. Take my time. Wait with you. Make it last. Keep it true. I love her.
The proceeding was a paid program brought to you by Starfish Speaks. The views and opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of this station.
This is a paid program
brought to you by the